Hi, my name's Corey Hart. I'm an education specialist with the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department, and I'm here as your guide on the Scat Track program as you get outside with your students and explore Vermont's many habitats and look for different species. The Scat Track program began during the COVID-19 pandemic and has been a huge success for the department. During 2024, we actually had students participating from every county in Vermont, and over 3,000 students participated on the program. What makes it so successful for us as a department is that you as an educator can choose how you want to use the program. That means you can spend as little as 10 to 15 minutes a week focusing on the individual species, or you can make it a larger unit and spend several hours with your students doing your nature walks, participating on the question and answer sessions, and doing other additional activities. Throughout this brief instructional video, we're going to review how the program operates, the support you'll be receiving from the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department, how the question and answer sessions operate, and the program as a whole. The program operates for 4 consecutive weeks during January, with registration deadline of December 15th annually. The registration deadline allows us to pack up welcome packs and send them out to each individual school. If you find out about the program afterwards, don't worry, you can still participate virtually with the videos. Every registered participant is going to receive a welcome packet for however many students they register that's going to include track identification cards. If you need additional track identification cards, you can print those off at vtfishandwildlife.com. You'll also receive a link to those cards from us after you register. So while the title of the program is Scat and Tracks, and we really hope that your students are going to get out there and look for sign of the species, what we're really focusing on is the life cycle of each species we're covering, as well as habitat, and understanding that each species needs a different type of habitat and has different individual needs. So to make the most of the program, the way it operates is each week you and your students are going to watch a pre-recorded video that you'll receive both by link or can find at vtfishandwildlife.com. That video is going to highlight one of 4 species, and every week we'll be focusing on a different, unique, Vermont-specific species. Each pre-recorded video that you watch lasts about 10 to 15 minutes in length, depending on the species that we're covering. After you have watched the pre-recorded video with your students, you're then going to take them outside on a nature walk. And you're going to be looking not just for sign and evidence that that species was there, such as the tracks, the scat, and other sign they might leave out there, but you're also going to be focusing on that habitat. And that's where it gets really fun when you have different age levels. For our younger grades, we're really just getting them outside and going on an adventure and getting that first initial concepts of where different critters live. For older grades, we really want them to be focusing on trying to find that specific habitat, finding that on their own with you as their guide, as the teacher, and then spreading out to try to look for sign and see how successful they were in nailing down that habitat. After you have conducted your nature walk with your students, and those nature walks should take anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes, you're then going to go back inside. You can review what you find. We recommend bringing sketchbooks with you. Instead of just taking photos of what we find outside, it's a really good idea to sketch that, bring it back inside, and then cross-reference what it is that we are looking at. On Thursday mornings at 9:15 a.m. and 10:15 a.m., Vermont Fish and Wildlife biologists are going to be joining us virtually for question and answer sessions with your students. You have the option to either not participate on the Q&A sessions at all if it doesn't work with your schedule, or you can pick one of the 2 sessions. You can mix that up throughout the week. If a 9:15 a.m. slot works great one week, 10:15 the other, that's perfectly fine. We'll send you out links to both. Pick the one that works the best, and your students will come and ask questions to the biologists that focus on those species. So our biologists are there to answer your students' questions, and they're really looking forward to it. Make sure that you spend time with your students reviewing their I Wonder charts and coming up with 3 or 4 key questions that your class wants to ask the biologist. We have about 45 minutes or so to get through everybody's questions. And pay attention, because other students that are out there in classes across Vermont might have the same question, and we'll be able to get the most of our learning as we listen to the conversation and see what everybody has as questions for our biologists. Typically throughout these sessions, The questions focus on everything from basic life cycles. Everybody always wants to know just how big and how fast each species can run. So we'll make sure to cover that because that's always a big question everybody asks. But also things such as what their habitat ranges are and a wide range of other questions that we'll be discussing. We receive a lot of feedback from teachers that are starting out on the Scat and Track program that the thing they're most nervous about is the nature walk with their students. And I'm here to actually tell you that that's the thing you should be the least nervous about. Once you actually get out there and go on your nature walk, you'll see that it goes extremely smoothly and your students will start to kind of act like a well-oiled machine as they get out there and look for evidence of the species that that we discussed previously in the week. There are some key tips though that'll help that nature walk go a little bit smoother for you as an educator. The first step with leading our nature walk is coming up with a location. And fortunately in Vermont, just about every single school that will be participating on this program has an appropriate location nearby. And you might be thinking, well, there's no way. My school is out in an urban area. There's no way that we'll be able to find evidence of these species. And you most likely can. Whether that means you take your students out and walk the edges of a baseball field or sports complex that is near your school. Maybe there's a town park within walking distance. Some schools are really fortunate and have ample access to the national forest or a state park. Once you get out and look, you'll find that there's just about in every scenario, there's a nearby location that will work. That said, not every area that you go to from your school within walking distance is going to have the appropriate habitat that we're discussing. For example, if we're discussing beaver that week, you might just not have a wetland. And that's okay. We can get it out there, we can go on our nature walk, and you can point out to your students why they wouldn't find beaver in this location. Or maybe they can tell you why that's not an appropriate habitat. And you can brainstorm other areas where they might encounter beaver or spots where they've seen them before. And the same goes for every species that we're discussing. But the vast majority of the species that we're highlighting throughout the program, you will be able to find evidence of near your local school. In Vermont, we are really fortunate that a lot of property owners will allow folks permission to go onto their private property. As you're planning your hike, make sure though that if you are going to bring it onto private property that abuts your school or your house, that you are courteous and ask permission from the landowner before you go out there. It's really important that you know your expectations ahead of time, both that your students know what your expectations are and what you expect out of them, but also you personally as an educator, what are you trying to get out of your nature walk when you go out there with your students? And that's going to vary based on several key factors. Well, what is the weather conditions outside? Is it a day where it's extremely cold? Are your students kindergarteners or are they 8th graders? That all kind of shapes what we're looking to get out of this particular exercise when we go out on our nature walk. What I like to keep in mind too is I don't want to spend more than 45 minutes when we're out there with our students. Just because I'm dressed and I'm bundled up, that doesn't mean my students are. The night before your nature walk, make sure that you notify the parents of your students that are participating that, hey, tomorrow make sure you bring snow pants, boots to school, and we dress warm because we're going to be spending about a half an hour to 45 minutes outside on a walk. That'll help avoid students that are coming to school in shorts and sneakers on a day we're going to go out and go on our nature walk. So the program itself operates for 4 weeks. It is perfectly acceptable though to completely postpone your hike if we have a really cold week. So let's say it's -20, it's windy, it's miserable. There's no need to go on a hike when it's like that. What you can do instead is postpone it. If you can go out later in the week, awesome. If you have to wait a week, that is fine. You can cover 2 species at a time on your next nature walk. Our biggest thing for that is you really just want to make sure your students are staying safe, they're warm. Always bring extra mittens and hats if you have them with you, because somebody will always forget them. You're going to get back to the classroom and you'll be missing half the mittens. That is just how it goes when we're out there with younger students. So it's good to bring extras and make sure that everybody's enjoying themselves. In terms of what we're focusing on though, with our younger students, remember we're really focusing on just getting out there. With a kindergarten class, that's really going to be our goal, is just going out on a nice controlled nature walk, exploring the fresh snow, seeing what's there. That's all we really want out of it for that age group. For our older age groups, we want them to get out there and start spreading out and searching a little bit. And as an educator, you're gonna set your own personal boundaries. Today, we have a beautiful trail that runs up through the woods. And this would be a great spot to go 2 or 3 students wide as they walk up the trail. I might be in an area though, like I'm standing right here behind me, where it's more open. There's not a set trail. And if you want the students to spread out a little bit, that is perfectly acceptable. If it's an area where there is no trail, you want to make sure that you're not walking single file and more than 3 students deep. It only takes about 3 students to create a trail in the woods. So when we get to those areas where there isn't a trail, you want to spread out and kind of fan out. And then just set that expectation though, that you stay within a certain distance of you as an educator. So if we're walking off trail, make sure that you implement the buddy system, as well as always having a teacher both in front and behind. And that's just for basic safety, but also for ensuring that when we do find something extremely exciting, let's say we find a fresh set of tracks, that the very first student doesn't come over and put their foot right in the middle of that track. So once we find something, call them over, everybody will come, we can look at it, sketch with our sketchbooks, and we don't ruin that fresh track or scat that we're out there searching for. Throughout your hike, make sure that you're following L&T, or leave no trace principles. And that means that we're not leaving candy wrappers out there, and we're really leaving no evidence that we're out in the woods with our class, other than footprints. That should be the only thing we're leaving behind. When you receive your welcome packets at the end of December, they're going to include an introductory letter, as well as directions on how to build your own sketchbooks with your students. And those are just pieces of scrap paper in between 2 things of cardboard. Your students can then take out those sketchbooks and look for any evidence of things that they find when they're out there on their nature walk. We find that the sketchbooks and creating our own from scratch really allow the students to interact more with what they're finding compared to either using your phone, which we don't want the students to use their phones at school anyway, or even just taking a regular notebook, creating that sketchbook. They're a little bit more involved with the process and really, really enjoy showing off what they found. And again, while we're out there, maybe we're looking for white-tailed deer, and we might sketch some turkey tracks. That is okay. If all we find is turkey or fisher or whatever it may be, and it's not the species we're looking for, that's still a success, and we can focus on the tracks that we identify. So again, in those welcome packs, you're also going to have pocket guides. And these pocket guides can be printed off at vtfishandwildlife.com, but you also receive enough for however many students that are going to be participating. And this includes homeschool families as well. So if you're a homeschool family that's participating, don't worry. You'll still receive these in the mail from the department. And on each of these pocket guides, it's got a handy dandy measure or ruler on the side, and then tells you approximately how big each of the tracks should be. So for porcupine, for example, our front tracks are going to be about 2.5 inches, and they're wide, and they're going to be about 3 inches high, and it follows all the way through. So that allows us to be able to identify really simply, but not needing the larger track in the full life-size replica, and it fits really easily in your pockets. The beauty of the Scat Track program is that you can spend a really short amount of time with your students out on it, or you can spend a whole lot longer. You're also going to receive a lot of support from the Fish and Wildlife Department, and that support is going to be through those question and answer sessions, but also through email. So let's say your students aren't able to attend the question and answer sessions. They have phys ed or art, whatever it may be. We know that throughout the entire state, somebody's going to have a conflict. That happens, and it's okay. So what you can do instead is you can email us at corey.hart@vermont.gov. That's corey.hart, H-A-R-T, @vermont.gov with your students' questions. We do ask that if it's a whole lot of questions from individual students, you condense them and make it a little bit easier for us to go through. But we'll do our best to get back to those questions or get you your answers within about 2 to 3 days. And some of our favorite questions that we receive are questions that we're not expecting, or questions that we have absolutely no idea. And that happens quite regularly because your students have some really awesome minds. They're very creative and they think outside the box, a lot more so than adults do in many situations. So when we get those type of questions, we'll do our best to look them up, find you those answers, and get them back to your inquisitive students. For those teachers that have been with us since the beginning of this program, thank you for continuing this program with your students. For those that are just joining for the first year, welcome. And we wish you happy tracks and hope for snow. That'll make it a whole lot easier as we get out there this winter. Have fun, and as always, reach out if you have any questions.